50% of Americans were for war going into Iraq. 50% were not. Suddenly, there was this 16-year-old girl who went on TV and she was crying and she couldn't be, you couldn't know who she was for her safety. But she said that she was in a hospital and there were babies in an incubator, and 16 babies, I think it was 16, had been taken out of the incubator by the soldiers and left on the ground, the cold ground, to die. And this was all over the news. And that 50% of people who didn't want war suddenly wanted war. And we went to war. We went to war. And later, and this wasn't on the news. This, what I'm about to say, was not on the news. They found out that this girl was lying. So this girl turned out to be a young Kuwaiti girl. She turned out to be the daughter of a Kuwaiti ambassador. She was coached and given her lines by an American PR firm called Hill and Knowlton. A Canadian investigative journalist group called The Fifth Estate found this out. It was a $10 million U.S. Kuwaiti campaign to justify the U.S. waging war. Oh my God. So the United States spent $10 million of taxpayers' dollars to start a campaign to get the American people to be behind them going to war. The United States set up a lie, an exorbitant lie. Bush went on TV and said the babies were taken out of the incubators and put on the ground. And that was a lie, and they proved it, but it was never on the news. Don't you think that would be a huge headline, or should have been a huge headline? But it wasn't. Do you know how dangerous corporate media is? What is it? With great power comes great responsibility. How many people listen to these channels? And I don't care if it's right or left. I'm a liberal, whatever. Do you think I'm going to tell you that CNN is telling the truth all the time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Especially when it comes to war. And it's not just like the United States lied to us and went to war. It's a word, war. It's just a thought. No. 500,000 children died in that war. 500,000 children died, not just in that war, but also because of the 10 years of sanctions following the war. So it was 135,000 Iraqis were killed in the war, 5,000 Americans were killed in the war, and then over 1 million Iraqi civilians died in the 10 years that followed because of U.S. sanctions, most of which were elderly and children. So let's go back. Oh my God. I heard on CNN the other day, Trump has a soft spot when it comes to kids. He seems incensed when he hears about kids dying. The pictures that you will see from last week, the chemical attack, children. Wait, what did I just say here? 1 million civilians died because of U.S. sanctions, the majority of which were elderly and children. And we went to war because 16 babies were supposedly pulled out of incubators. Because of 16 babies were supposedly killed out of incubators, why didn't anyone care about the 1 million Iraqi children and elderly people and civilians that were killed after that because of us? Why? I mean, have people lost their minds completely? Lost their senses? Just because you're a Republican and the president is a Republican, everything he does is fine? It's not. If this was Bernie Sanders, who I love more than life itself, doing this, I would be up in arms, enraged. I would be yelling But people, I don't understand what's going on in the United States. They've lost their mind. I get it. People don't have time to do the research. They're busy. They have kids. They have jobs. So they throw on the nightly news at the end and they listen to whatever the commentator's telling them, and then they go regurgitate it like it's law. And this goes for me too. You don't have to believe a damn word I'm saying right now. All you have to do, you know, is do the research and not just go to one source. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. So this is a report by RT. It's titled, "After Visiting Duma, Western Media Begins to Question Gas Attack Narrative." I really love how they say narrative. After speaking with eyewitnesses on the ground in Syria, even mainstream media are beginning to cast doubt on the West narrative of the alleged gas attacks in Duma. Agence France Presse, AFP, the world's third largest news agency, and The Independent, a British online newspaper, each have published stories that question whether chlorine or any chemical was even used in Syria. So they spoke to witnesses, a witness there that afternoon. The victim suffered from asthma and pulmonary inflammation. They had treatment and some were sent home. There was no symptoms of a chemical attack, but some foreigners came in, and this is talking about she was in the hospital. She's a medical student. Some foreigners came in and sprinkled water on people and started yelling, and chaos broke out, and then there was someone filming. So bombs were dropped. What this article goes on to say is that the bombs, there was some kind of bombing, but what they're saying is that it caused dust to rise up in the air and go into the basements of civilians, so people were having problems breathing, and they went into this, you know, clinic having these problems breathing. Everything was fine. Here, I'm going to read the word for word here. All of the stories published with different outlets corroborate testimony from two of the men who appeared in the footage that has been spread far and wide by Western media and governments. Interviewed by the Russian military, the two men said they were unknowing accomplices in the gas attack ruse. "We were working and we did not pay attention to the people filming us," the first eyewitness said. A man came in and started screaming gas, and everyone started panicking and spraying each other with water, but there was no chemical poisoning. Doctors and medical workers questioned by the Center for Reconciliation confirmed that there had been no reports of patients suffering from chemical poisoning in Duma after the time frame of the alleged gas attacks. Why is that not on CNN? Why is that not on Fox? Why is that not Sarah Huckabee Sanders? I don't know why I said it like that. Why is she not talking about that? Why is Trump not talking about that? Why is this not everywhere? I don't know. I don't quite know. So here's the question that nobody's asking. Or I know people are. But like mainstream, it's not happening. Why would Assad gas his people? It's just like last year. Assad was winning. He was finally winning. The United States was about to pull out of Syria. And all of a sudden, Assad decides to gas his people. He does the one thing that he knows would turn the world's superpowers, who are much stronger than him, against him. Gas his people when he was winning. He was winning. What was it? They said something like the ISIS and that we're on the verge of just that he was winning. Why would he have gassed his people? That's what happened last year and this year. The United States was about to pull out of Syria, and then he decided to gas his people. No one asks why. Why? Just because he's a bad person? Because he's a horrible, horrible human. If he wanted to kill people, he would have just bombed them anyways, because bombing is way more effective than gassing. But Well, no one asked those questions. So, does the United States really care about children? No. What would be a reason why the United States would want to stay in Syria? Number one, the military-industrial complex. Number two, oil and gas. What's going on is that Saudi Arabia wants to build a pipeline to Europe so that they can supply gas, natural gas, to Europe. But that pipeline has to go through Syria. Right now, the main supplier of gas to Europe is Russia. Okay, well, let's put two and two together. So Russia is on Syria's side, trying to protect Syria. But it's not because they care about Syria. It's because they don't want this pipeline going through. Because they're the ones who provide the gas to Europe. Saudi Arabia wants this pipeline to go through. The United States wants the pipeline to go through because of the petrodollar. Because anyone who buys gas has to first convert their currency to American dollars. And then the Saudi Arabian government gives the United States a huge payoff for that. So the United States supplies Saudi Arabia with weapons. Saudi Arabia supplies ISIS and Al-Qaeda with weapons. ISIS and Al-Qaeda go into Syria. They're fighting there. We're fighting in Syria, but we're protecting the people. We're trying to fight ISIS, which we actually supply the weapons to anyways.